Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a new Unreal project, and I will be using Unreal Engine 5 for this, because I've been doing that for pretty much every tutorial, since hopefully soon Unreal Engine 5 will come out. At the time of recording this, it's still in beta, yes, but hopefully soon it will become the norm to use Unreal Engine 5. And also the lighting is so much nicer in Unreal Engine 5 to do. So give it a name. I'm going to just call this interior environment. I never like to go for like too long names because there is a limit in the amount of characters you can have in your project location combined with the name. So always just try to keep it short, and also try here, as you can see, I already have like a very long location. So try to maybe like keep the location also short. I think it would be quite cool if we go for like a third person character over here, just so that we can really walk around in our environment and make sure that all of the scaling is correct. And for the rest, all of this can stay to default, just maximum quality. And then we can go ahead and we can press... Oh no, wait, actually let's do a starter content. And the only reason I want to do starter content is because it has like a glass material. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to press create. And that will create the environment for us. So what we are going to do first is we are going to define the scaling. That one is very important for this environment. Now, this environment is quite large, so it's not like a interior of a house where your ceiling would probably be like a maximum of 2.5 meters if you have like a high ceiling, and maybe like 2 meters if you have like a low ceiling. That's not the case. Like you probably know here, if you look at the malls, how large these ceilings are and how large all of the doorways are and everything. So we want to kind of like give that same feeling over here. So you can see if an average person is like 1 meter 80, this is easily like 3 to 4 meters high or something like that. So we are just going to play around with what feels best, pretty much. So here we go. As you can see, here's our player. If you want, you can press play and then you can see that we can just like walk around over here. I do expect that you know the basics of Unreal. You definitely need it if you want to follow along with this tutorial. If you don't, of course, just watch like a quick introduction tutorial. But let's set up our project. I'm going to get started by just going in my content browser. By the way, I have my content browser. You might start up with like a content browser like this. Just press dock to layout or dock in layout, and then you will get your content browser in this layout. So let's go ahead and create a new folder in our content, and let's call this interior environment. And this folder will basically contain all of our personal assets and textures and everything like that. So we can right click folder assets, right click folder textures, right click folder saves. What else do we need? Materials. Yeah, let's leave it to this right now. So we got a few base folders over here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a brand new level. And I'm just going to make it a simple default level. I quite like it because the default level already has like some basic lighting so that I can see what I'm doing. Now in here, I can pretty much leave everything here except for the floor. Let's delete that. The player start, let's keep it also, because we do want to go ahead and use that later on. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to File and save my current level and then save it. And this will already become later on our final level. So interior environment. That's what I'm going to call it over here. So now we have done that. One last thing that I like to do is I like to go to settings and project settings. And if you go to your maps and modes, you can set your default project. So whenever you start up your engine, you can set this to be your interior environment. So this becomes your main level. So whenever we start up the engine, we will just go ahead and we will load in this level over here. Okay, perfect. So we got this done. Now, first of all, what I like to do is I like to go into my materials and I like to create a new material. So right click, new material, and just call it plane_master. This will basically be plain colors that we can control so that when we are designing our level, we can easily give it like a more or a nicer color to look at. So I'm just going to go ahead and in my material, right click and add a constant tree vector. And then convert this to parameter, which means that we can control the color later on. And call this color. And let's make it like not perfect white, but make it like a grayish color by default over here. And then right click, or you can do an S click to add a scalar parameter and call it roughness and set this to 0.8 and just plug this into our roughness map. There we go. So that's all we need. We can just go ahead and we can save this. And then if we are in our plane color or our plane master, we can right click, create a material instance and just call this gray. And then as you can see, because this is a material instance, when you open it, you can control the color and the roughness, of course. So that's pretty much all that we need for this one. I think the last thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and show you. Oh wait, I actually need to do it myself also. We want to activate a plugin that is brand new to Unreal Engine 5. And if you go to Edit and Plugins, in here, if you type in Modeling and then find the Modeling Tools Editor mode. And as you can see, it is still in beta. So it really only comes with Unreal Engine 5. You want to enable it, and basically what this allows us to do is it allows us to do some very basic modeling. These are things like Boolean functions, things like extruding and moving edge and everything on specific models. So I will show you. This is really easy when you're creating a blockout and you need to create some more unique looking, I don't know, like shapes. So you do need to restart your engine. So let me just do that now. Here we go. So I just restarted my engine. As you can see, it loaded up my level. And now you should have... Oh, where are you? Did I not activate it? Modeling. Yeah, I know that. Huh? Okay, let me try again. Okay, so this time it did work. I don't know why. I don't know why it didn't show up. But anyway, when it does show up, you have this extra button over here, which is the Activate Modeling Editing mode, which allows you to create shapes, do stuff like adding loops, doing in general poly editing, doing booleans. Now, it doesn't all work perfect, just keep that in mind. So I only like to use it for blockouts and very basic stuff. But the boolean function actually works surprisingly well, so I do sometimes use those on final models. Anyway, we are now completely set up to get started with our environment. So, to give me some free range, what I like to do is I like to just very quickly go up here to activate landscape and immediately just press create. So that I just have like a very large floor over here. We will most likely replace this later on. And I'm just going to click on it, scroll down and just throw your gray material into the landscape material. Something like this, see? So just a massive plain floor. Okay, for our scaling. Now, as I said before, I already did some planning, so I already know about which scaling would be best. So let's just go ahead and get started. So basically the kind of scaling that I want to have, if I go ahead and go to create shapes and create like a cube over here. Let's set my location over here. This to 0. And this one down here. There we go. So I'm setting my... what is it? I'm setting my terrain all the way to 0 over here. Okay, so I like the look of like a clean cube. Let's have a look. So I want the base height of my floors to be 4.5 meters long over here. And as you can see, because it's 0.5, my snapping needs to be set to 5 grid points, because else I cannot do like proper snapping. So this is basically going to be the basic floor height that you can see over here. So that means that I want my pillars to be 1 by 1 by 5. As I said before, I already planned this out. You would need to experiment with this if you want to create your own environment and see whatever works best for you. And do not be afraid to actually look up online actual measurements of like default floors and walls and everything. So I want to have my default wall to be 5 meters over here. Yeah, I can just rotate it. Doesn't matter. So 5 meters and then 0.2 meters. So it is just like a thin wall. And then still 4.5. So this I want to be my basic wall. So it's just going to be like a nice plain wall over here. Now next to this, I also want to go ahead and have like a cylinder over here. So we are going to have two types of pillars. We are going to have a square pillar but I also like to have like a cylinder pillar. And that one is going to be 4.5 meters long. However, I'm going to make the thickness, so I'm looking at my notes over here, 0.6 by 0.6 over here. So just going to be like a nice thin cylinder that we can use over here. Like this. So this one will also be nice just to break stuff up. And this one is going to be like the constructional cylinders that you can see over here. This one is going to be like the internal cylinders or constructional pillars. This one is going to be the internal pillars that you cannot actually see. But I have a good idea of where to place them. It is mostly like around here. Because right now this is all crumbled, but our floors will not be collapsed. So our floors will actually, I want to have like some supports here and there to make sure that everything does not just collapse into each other. So we have this kind of stuff. Now, of course, you can have like railings and everything like that. I would say that the last one that I want to show you is going to be a floor panel or a ceiling panel. You can choose yourself, which is going to be 5 meters by 5 meters by 0.5, I decided. And the reason I'm making it a little bit thicker is because also over here, you can see that there is like a floor panel in between here. So I personally decide that I'm not going to make mine as thick probably. Maybe I can make it, I don't know, should I make it a little bit? The reason that I'm not sure if I want to make it a bit thicker is because we are also going to have like railings on top of it. But then again, this actually seems really thin now I look at it. So I might actually change my mind and go for like 1 meter thickness over here. And then I will probably also create a variation that's like a lot thinner for our ceiling. But basically this one is just going to be 5 by 5. And as you can see, this is something that you will see me keep doing. I always try to go for square shapes. Now this is a force of habit because normally if I create UVs that are completely unique, but they need to be modular, so they need to be repetitive, I like to go for square shapes. Of course, this one is not completely square. However, of course, for this environment, we will not actually be using specifically these UVs over here. But basically, as you can see over here, we now have this. So what I can, for example, do is I can, for example, very quickly just to show you, let's say that we have our wall over here. Let's say that I'm placing my wall like this. And I'm actually going to also replicate these dimensions inside of Maya so that I can immediately turn them into final models later on, so that when we place it we don't need to replace it. If I go ahead and use these as my blockout, later on what I would need to do is I would need to start by just keep replacing all of my models, and I do not want to do that. Sorry if I sometimes have like a brain freeze, it's because I'm trying to think, because there's a lot of thinking going on in the background while creating this. So over here we have this one, and this one is basically going to be like centerway. But what we will do with our interior is we will often just have like pieces sticking out like this, so that because you cannot see it anyway. Of course, if you want to go ahead and you want to make a transition from outside to inside, you just want to make this a little bit cleaner. So you might want to make like a floor piece that is just a lot thinner and stuff like that. But for now, let's say that we have this one over here. We will basically just go ahead and like duplicate it over here. And then I would go ahead and I would, so I need to have a think about this because everything changes. When I change one dimension, everything changes. So I need to have a look. And normally I would push this up here, but then my second floor would become a little bit shorter. So that's why I'm thinking about this, that I might want to make these pillars 5 meters specifically, only these ones, so that they basically have like a little bit of a buffer zone over here. And if I do this now, and then this one is on the bottom, that's fine. I just need to double check if this works fine. So we now have this one, and yes, so this is a little bit sunken in. But now for this last one, what we can do is we can move this one up over here, which should give us pretty much here, like the same level. So the base floor will be slightly different, most likely. Or not, no, because I would probably use this anyway, so... Ooh, this is a tricky one. This is a tricky one because how am I using this? I'm using this midway, at the midway point. So yeah, this is part of the testing. So right now what I'm thinking about is if I use this as a midway point over here, it would become quite thick. Also these ones can probably like go a little bit in. But it might just be fine. So I might be able to keep using it like this, but then we will have to have a look and see if the ceilings are high enough or not. So let's say that we have another one like this. And push it up over here. Okay, so let's say that this is going to be like our structure pretty much. And then maybe at like the very top ceiling, because that one will be closed off, you would kind of like do something like this. So if this is going to be our structure, one thing that I quickly need to do is I just need to quickly grab one of these pieces and just scale them. And this is just because what we are going to do now is we are going to go into player mode, and I'm going to see if this is actually good enough for what I want. So I can just go ahead and I can move this over here. And I basically now just want to go ahead and make sure that your player start is above your floor, because else you will fall through. So yeah, this looks nice and grand, so I quite like that. So I think this scale is pretty good, because we want to go for like these really large openings that you saw over here, see? So you can see compared to like the people, these are really large stores. We also have some smaller stores. So what I have in mind is that, let's see if we go play. So this one is fine. It's nice and large, just like a nice open space. And then I should be able to kind of like walk up here. And then this one is going to be, because it's a second floor, a slightly more confined space, but it's honestly, it's probably just like a 30 centimeter difference or something like that. So that should still be fine. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And then also from like a distance, you can see that it looks quite nice and large. Okay, so perfect. So knowing all of that, with these shapes, what we're going to do now is we are going to just go ahead and dive into Maya and set up like a bunch of different models like this using these base dimensions. So that's pretty much it. These are all the dimensions I need, because based upon this, I also know how large my escalators need to be. I know how large basically everything needs to be. So let's get started with the modeling part in Maya in the next chapter.